I don't really think if I switch instruments that I'm playing different music. You get a different perspective from them, though. And like when I started, I'd played the mandolin for a long time, and then I got this bouzouki thing, and it's like being a little kid again. You have to reach, but it's like a mandolin is this big, and it's like you have to learn again. And that beginner mind is kind of good for songwriting. It distracts you. Really simple stuff becomes interesting again. And piano's that way. I don't really know how to play piano, but every once in a while I'll go to it and make some sounds and come up with some kind of melodic idea that occurs to me. It seems cooler because it's coming out of a different place. It's like music, I always often liken music to a mountain. And if you look at it from 50 miles away, it looks one way. If you look at it from right underneath, it looks one way. If you're on top of it, it looks another way. And then every degree of 360 degrees around that has got a different look. It's the same mountain. Same music comes out of these things, whether it's a stringed instrument or a wind or just your voice or a percussion or whatever. It's music. Like when I was writing with Danny O'Keefe, he's a guy, known songwriter from the 70s. He wrote a big hit called Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues. You come to Nashville and co-write with people in a publishing deal, and so I wrote with him sometimes. And we were writing a song that Nickel Creek eventually recorded called When You Come Back Down. And I said, well, I was writing it about my own life, and I was saying, when I leave home, my partner, there's a certain amount of trust there that I'm going to come back, Mm-hmm. I'm going out on the road, and I'm going to be faithful to her, and I'm going to come back. But, she has to trust me. So that's where it started. And so he came up with the idea of a trapeze, and a guy that catches the trapeze artist when they fall or when they, when they come back, they stop them from swinging, and they come back to the station. So he came up with that, and that really set the song in motion. Let's tell you what. You gotta leave me now. You gotta go alone. You gotta chase a dream. The one that's all your own before it slips away. I'll be the other hand at all these holes in line, connecting in between this old heart of mine, strung out on that wire. When you're soaring through the air, I'll be your solid ground. Take every chance you dare, I'll still be there when you come back down. I'll be the other hand that always holds the line, connecting in between this old heart of mine, strung out on that wire. I've forgotten some of that, but so you can see where it starts and how he drew it out. I wrote a song about my sister that died when I was young, and all I really had to do was look at this picture, and I was inspired by the picture. A picture was on the wall of my room growing up, and she died when I was 2. So I think, and the picture is called Her Guardian Angel, and it's got this little girl being led through the grass past a snake in the foreground by a guardian angel. And so I think my mom must have tucked me in and said, your sister's watching over you. She had a guardian angel, and now she's watching over you, and that kind of thing. And I only wrote it recently, so this is trying to get back to a 2-year-old's memory, and also basically summarize what that picture has meant and what she's meant to me. It was so easy to write a song. It was just a matter of sitting down with a paper and a guitar or whatever, because I knew I'd sort of already digested a lot of stuff about it, that I didn't know much about her. I'm never going to know much about her. She didn't live very long. And my memories of her are, I think I have some genuine personal memories, but I think most of the memories are manufactured out of stories that older relatives talked about. So I kind of talk about that in the song, and I'll sing it for you. I guess there's no time when I can't recall the picture hanging up there on the wall of a little girl walking by a snake in the grass, and a guardian angel is guiding her path. I lost a big sister when that picture was new, in 1956, just before I turned 2. It took part of my memory, I added stories and things. I made her my angel, she has her own wings. I made her my angel, she has her own wings. She would have held my hand, she would have called my name. Too young to remember, I miss her the same. My guardian angel, I miss her the same. I don't know much about her, there's not much to know. Just 6 years of living and then she had to go. And my parents, they grieved, somehow they moved on. And I grew up knowing my sister was gone. And I grew up knowing, that's supposed to be instrumental there. And I found an old letter that my mom wrote that year. And each time I read it, I shed a new tear. It helps me to feel some of what my parents felt then. I think of my own kids and then I feel it again. I think of my own kids and then I feel it again. I would have held her hand, I know I called her name. My guardian angel, I miss her the same. She would have held my hand, she would have called my name. Too young to remember her, miss her the same. My guardian angel, I miss her the same. I guess there's no time when I can't recall that picture hanging up there on the wall. So you see, it's like those details that I already knew, and I was just trying to rhyme something, but I wanted to talk about how I didn't really know her, but I've thought an awful lot about her. I was close to her, you know, and it felt really satisfying to talk about something that's very complex in a song and sort of get it out of the way, you know. A lot of people think that's a terrible, sad song to sing, and it is, and yet it makes me satisfied, and I've already done most of the grieving. I continue to grieve, of course, always at certain times, but it's kind of a good thing to just get it out of the system. And like the song matter, the subject matter of your songs is kind of I kind of need to do enough research on things to get a good song, and I'd done that already. See, and I never know what I'm going to write a song about, because it only happens when I get some kind of phrase that unlocks all that subject matter. Like Guardian Angel. Oh yeah, well I can write a song about this picture. I never thought about it. I've written about my lost sister before, but this was, looking at this picture and how it reminds me of her, and it was an easy one to write, and that's I'm kind of always looking for that, something that will unlock a subject with a phrase. It's usually like a crystal around which the song will form. And Walk the Way the Wind was that. A number of songs. Untold Stories is another one, sort of about, I had spent the evening with my cousin who told me all these stories I didn't know. He's 10 years older or 12 years older than me, so he knew my oldest brother growing up. They were running buddies, and he knew my older brother who died in Vietnam. He knew him more as a contemporary. I never knew my brother that way. So that was really interesting. And I was able to write a song about it, which sounds like a love song. Sounds like I'm just talking to a lover in the song. But it's really about my dad, who had a falling out with my cousin and him. And, Joni Mitchell did that with a song, probably more than one. Both Sides Now is a famous song by Joni Mitchell. Apparently she gave up a child for adoption when she was just beginning as a musician. And she was really, tormented by all that, of course. And so she said she wrote like 50 verses to this song, Both Sides Now. And then she and she got it all out. And then she decided, I'm going to take out everything that's specific to me, and specific to giving a baby up for adoption, and I'm going to disguise the song and see if I can make a song out of it. Well, she did that, and that's what you hear in the song. And then she started getting fan letters, when the song came out. People saying, I don't know what it is about that song, but I gave a child up for adoption. She got tons of letters like that. So what does that tell you? There's something mysterious in the words and in the emotion of the song. I mean, I think in the music, that feeling is in there. You wed these lyrics to a feeling. I mean, wed these, lyrics, but also the melody to this subject matter and to try to get the right feeling. And it somehow takes over and does something mysterious and unexplained. But there's some kind of power in that that's... It's funny because by making it unspecific, she made it more universal. But I also find converse happens, that personal detail kind of makes everybody understand more. I don't know what it brings you. I think personal detail, like how this feels, or the color or the smell in the room here, or I was tying my shoes. It's like you're going to take a walk, and you say, instead of saying I was walking, or I thought I should take a walk, instead you say I tied my shoes, and that kind of says, oh, you're going to go somewhere. So those things, that's a better way of saying I'm going to take a walk for a song. These little snippets of detail that you see, and that's. It's a mysterious process of songwriting. I had one, my dad. I wanted to write about my dad. I'm writing about a bunch of dead people. My dad, he always, I'm singing about him. He was so optimistic, and then he ended up a widower and living alone in an assisted living place, although he didn't really need it. He didn't really ever need it. He drove up until a month before he died and all this stuff. Anyway, about 9 months after he died, I'd written a song or two about him, about the process of grieving and about losing him and everything, but I never sang them for anybody. And then I wrote this one, and it was good because it was just his words, stuff that he would say to me. And it kind of brings him to life because, he couldn't hear, so he would have you always turn on the speakerphone. you know, when you were there at his house, he said, just turn it on speakerphone because I can't really hear it unless you do that. When I hand him the phone for a call. And he also tried to he couldn't get NPR to come in on his radio in his house, in his apartment. And he made an antenna, homemade antenna, and that didn't work. So I put that in there, that he couldn't get that station. Afraid of falling. You know, afraid he's gonna break something. He was in his 90s at that point. So this is stuff he'd say on the phone to me when I talk to him or when I visit him. Well, I'm not afraid of dying. Just waiting around, just waving on me, just breathing easy. It's a whole lot harder than it used to be. Well, I've written my book. I paid a bill, see a check came in. Pick up the widows at 6. I'm gonna drive them to dinner, then home again. I'm afraid of falling. Sitting down is hard enough to get back up. I must have dozed a little. Remind me again what we were talking about. Does that sound familiar to you? Do you have an elderly parent that would be, I can't remember, and you fell asleep and then, what were we talking about? And what is that? The other thing my dad did was, he said, after my mom died, he said, I'm not going to pair up with a widow. Your mother was the love of my life. I'm done. I don't need another partner. He said, but if I take a widow to dinner, I'll take 2 or 3. He said, because he could see and drive, and they couldn't. They could hear, he couldn't hear. And so that worked out. So that's in there. And then I've heard every joke. Just can't remember enough of even one to tell. Put that on speakerphone, will you? That way the caller won't have to yell. I've been around too long. While I wasn't looking, my life just blew on past. Each time I see you, I know full well it could be my last. I'm not afraid of dying, whoa. It's just waiting around, it's wearing on me, just breathing easy. It's a whole lot harder than it used to be. So far you've had the same, it's not a standard length of section. Most things are like in 4 bars or 8 bars, you know, or then you repeat to have 16 bars or something. But this one's, I don't know how many measures it is, but it's not standard. And what it was is I wrote the lyrics out. And I just sort of made it up. And so so once I got like one verse right and felt like that was good, then I trimmed or added words to other lines that I had been working on to fit with that same thing. So, da-da-da-da-da-da, to the 4 chord, back to the 1, the 4 to 1 that's repeating, 4 to 1, there's not a lot of music to it. Watch the news tonight. Is that digital download stuff kind of hurting your music business, son? Who sets all your stuff up? Well, when you play here again, I sure hope I can come. It's just about rhyming these things. You know, I tried that station. Just can't make it come on inside these walls. I guess I'm hard of hearing. Sometimes I hear your mother call, and that, you know, he could hear that through any static. He could hear my mother calling his name, and when she was alive, he could hear that. He could pick that up, even if he couldn't hear anything else. So, you know, I'm describing my dad, and I'm using his words. But then you get to that point in the song, I go, gee, I've only had one little thing going on musically. I needed to. What am I going to do? So I felt like that lyric meant just go to a whole nother thing and don't even sing the chorus there. Sometimes I hear your mother call, and then you put him in this dream and just into another world, like he's remembering. So I just kind of made up this thing. I just started playing chords and I started singing, and I went dum da da doo 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 doo. I might have done that 2 or 3 times, but this is maybe the third time I went, well, maybe if I start that way, da 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 da. You're repeating but changing. Da, 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 I'm all in a different key. Da, 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 da. You're always moving. You need to find some way you can stay at home. I thought by now you'd be a teacher. That music bug grabbed you, wouldn't leave you alone. Your boys are really something. While I wasn't looking, my life just blew on past. Each time I see you, and I got the wrong. Your boys are really something. And you're lucky you have such a beautiful life. Thanks for coming to see me, lad. You know I might have had about enough of this life. I'm not afraid of dying, whoa. So waiting around, that's waving on me. Just breathing easy. It's a whole lot harder than it used to be. I'm not afraid of dying, whoa. So waiting around, that's wearing on me. Just breathing easy. Yeah, it's a whole lot harder than it used to be. Whoa, yeah. So that, I don't know what made me think of to go to that chord for that middle section, but I sort of think some jazz practice and some jazz substitution, chord substitution kind of came into it. So you're kind of in, it's like you're playing like a blues, like a, they're all dominant 7th chords. You're going from a G7 to a C7 to a G7. There's not even a 5 chord, it's just 2 chords. So you're going G to C, like in a blues progression in G, sort of. And I've got the G7 with a sus there. You raise the 3rd. You can do it here. Well, the 5 chord of G, 5 minor is a kind of often a substitute for a dominant 7 chord. So if you have a G7, whatever the 5th note of the G scale is, a D, play a D minor. It often leads, it can lead from that. You want something different before that G7, or you want to go back and forth. That's like what they, in jazz you got 2-5-1 progressions. The 2 chord is the 2nd chord of this harmonized scale. The 5 is the 5 chord, and the 1 is the root chord. So you have, in C you'd have D minor, G7, C. So that 2 minor, 2 to 5, 2 to 5, the 2 chord kind of fits right next to the 5. So I used that, I started there. Dun, da, da, dun, but then all of a sudden I've changed keys. I've got dum. The D minor is kind of part of whatever G7 is. It's just, G7 is really part of a C scale, I guess. This is all technical stuff, but there it is. I use a 5. I've used this same thing, substitute. Walk the way the wind blows. Up along the hallway, down along the stairs. I can see the pictures made down through the years, and it makes me blue, darling. Instead of 1, instead of G. And it makes me blue, darling. Usually, a lot of times you can, when you're going from G to C, you can play G7. That's a really. You hear that little interim chord? Well, if you play D minor, you're kind of playing G7. So I'm substituting D minor for G. So that's what I did. I started da 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 da, and then I just went to a new key, I guess, F. Da, 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 but it's really not any key. Da, 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 doo, 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 I do a lot of solo shows, and I do this on the mandolin. I wrote it on a guitar, but I figured out a way to play that melody and then harmonize it. Dun, da, da, doo, doo, doo. I sing the melody and play the chords. Da, da, doo, 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 da, 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 doo, da, 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 so the audience can't hear the chords specifically, but it does suggest them. This is getting into what maybe the class description today mentioned, which is writing and arranging your songs for the mandolin. Like I had a whole band there, and when I got to that bridge thing on the recording, I had that melody doubled, and I played harmony on the fiddle, I think, and some other banjos, and I get this big glob of stuff going. But I couldn't do that live on the solo show. But I figured out if I express the chords with a harmony part, then I can actually play that. Da, 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 doo, 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 doo. Chords are going to be E flat to B flat, da, 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 F to C, da, 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 B flat to F, C, da, 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 da. I go to D. I knew I wanted to get to D before I went back to the original section, harmony, because G, we're going to start at G, and the 5 chord wants to go to G. So, but you know, dum, da, 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 da. Usually these melodies kind of fit the chords. They have chord tones in them. So, do, 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 do. So see, so it goes from the B flat and an E flat chord to an F and a B flat chord. To C, to a C over an F chord, to a C over a C chord. So the harmony, that was the hard part right there, to figure out what to do there. The harmony changed because I can't go below the G note, and if I'd have stayed in the same scheme, I'd have been down here somewhere. So I just picked a different harmony note. But just those little things, you know, it's like you've got a mandolin and you've got a song and you're going to sing it. You're going to figure out a way to do it. Red Dog, well, see, there's one, it doesn't mean anything. Red Dog in the Morning is like I was at a friend's house. It was Ruth and Rob down there in, where are they from? Red Hook, New York. They did a house concert, and the next morning we were going to have breakfast and had a cup of coffee, and Rob had his banjo out, and it had this tuning that I didn't know, and I started frailing on the banjo, and I just started singing a thing, and I went, Red Dog in the morning, black dog in the afternoon. And I just kept singing it, and then I went, red black dog howling at the moon. And I went, well, that's kind of cool, and I played it, and then I remembered it, and I wrote it down in a little book in my back pocket. And then we went off to the next gig. You know, and it's just, it's funny, like there's a lot of songs like that are nonsense songs, and that's one of them, I guess. But then I put other stuff to it about missing somebody. I was walking, red dog in the morning, black dog in the afternoon. to smoke when I pass by. It's a red dog in the morning, black dog in the afternoon. Red dog in the morning, black dog howling at the moon. Sort of added this part to play something different in between verses. You nail a hide up on a barn wall, then you rub and scrape the tan and tame. Take my corn to the mill pond, pay that man to grind your grain. Red dog in the morning. Anyway, like, it's just kind of old-timey stuff, like smoke signals with green wood. Raising a flag up on a far mountain, you know, well, what mountain am I walking towards and where is it? And maybe you see the flag and you know that's where you're going.